everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be doing some donuts. Yes, these are soap, by the way. These are not actually donuts, but they are in the cutest little donut molds that I got from Amazon, and I will be linking to these down in the description. But we are going to unmold these today. I actually made these yesterday, but because of some camera issues, mainly I didn't have my battery charged, so I didn't actually get to do the making of. But these little donuts were made with some bronze brown mica powder from Nurture Soap, and of course my regular cold process soap, oils, and lye water. Okay, so I pulled some of the little gummy bears, you can see here, out of the mold, and for some reason they were incredibly long on the back, so I had to cut that part off. But the good thing about cutting off pieces of melt and pour is that you can just put it back into the container and melt it again and reuse it, because, you know, reduce, reuse, recycle, people. I mean, why throw that stuff away? You know, I'm rich. But anyway, so, oh, I also forgot to mention earlier, the fragrance I'm using for the donuts is Chocolate Indulgence by Nurture Soap. And I have to say, there's, just like it says on the bottle, there's no acceleration. It does discolor very dark because it's got a lot of vanillin in it, but it smells very, very chocolatey. And I think those are gonna just absolutely smell delicious after we get done. Another little addition I'm gonna do here is the jojoba beads from Brambleberry. I've got the jasmine, which is a really pretty dark purple. I've got the ocean blue, which is a very, very bright, vibrant blue. And I've got the lagoon green jojoba spheres. These usually are used to have sort of an exfoliating quality to them. But I also like to use them for a topper, something, just some little sprinkles, because you know, they're pretty and they go along with the soap process, and I think it was just a really pretty addition, and I think it'll go well with the color scheme. So we're going to be using those today too. And what I have here is some sodium hydroxide and some distilled water. And over here I have my oils already set up. Everything for the most part right now is at room temperature. I think I'm soaping at about 83 degrees for the oils, about 85 for the lye water. And I'm just gonna grab a bucket over here. Alrighty then. Now we have our mixing bucket. So what I'm gonna do first, I'm just gonna pour the oils in here. Make sure everything gets out of my little container. I try to keep things in basic size containers so that, you know, anything that has measurements on the side, so that I can actually see how much of something that I have. And then when I go to mix, I like to mix in something a little larger so that I don't have to worry about overspill, especially when you're dealing with lye water, because if you've watched my previous videos, I try to mention each time that lye is a caustic substance. It can burn you. It can also blind you if it gets in your eyes. Even the soap in its raw form, which would just be soap that's already been mixed together with the lye water, is still caustic and can burn your skin. And I'm going to mix up some titanium dioxide because we want our piping to be very white and vibrant, because it's supposed to look like icing. So before we start putting together our donuts, I'm going to get that mixed together with a little distilled water, and I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. And here we have just a little titanium dioxide, about a tablespoon, and then just some distilled water to mix it in. I'm going to go ahead and add that to my lye water solution, because we want this to be incredibly vibrant I like my icing to look like the real thing, like good old cream cheese icing right out of the package. We're gonna burp the blender here, and I know that sounds like really ridiculous, like burp the blender, but actually you're just getting air bubbles out, because air bubbles are not your friend when it comes to this. And then we're gonna pour our lye water and titanium dioxide down the stick blender into our oils. Make sure we get all of that out. Okay, we're gonna set that aside. Now I'm just gonna give a little swirl here to mix things in, and then we're gonna blend on high. Okay, now we blended that together. It's kind of at a thin trace. And I've explained it before, but trace is basically a thickening of the oils and the lye water after they come together. Of course, they create a process called saponification. And trace is just a part of a level to that. Like when I'm doing of course the icing part, or the piping as we call it, I try to keep it start out as thick as possible, because this has to get really thick so that we can put it into a piping bag. And here I just have a Wilton, I think this is the 16-ounce piping bag, and I'm using the Royalty Soaps piping kit from Nurture Soap Supply. And I'm going to have to wait until this thickens up enough to where it's a pipeable consistency. So what you want to kind of do is you want to set this up, and then you want to come back about every 5 minutes or so, give it a stir, give it a check. Sometimes what I do is I just sort of chill out and watch a YouTube video, or run around in the house and do something really quick. I mean, you obviously don't want to just, you can't run to the store and leave this. I mean, it wouldn't be advisable. So I try to just do stuff around the house, or watch TV, look at, check out some things on my phone, maybe make a label for my soaps, and just wait till this sets up. This isn't quite there yet, but the titanium dioxide tends to make things thicken. So this should reach a good pipeable consistency probably in about 10 to 15 minutes. It also depends on the temperature. I'm soaping at a low temperature, so it's going to take a little longer than if I was soaping at something hotter. And here's also something I learned that I did not know before I started soaping, and that is a lot of it depends on what type of olive oil you're using. Pomace brand or style olive oil tends to thicken soap faster. And in the beginning, I struggled with trace so badly because my soaps would thicken so quickly, and I couldn't understand why. And then I realized it was because I was using the Pomace olive oil, because I looked it up. I went to all these different channels and all these different forums to try to figure out why my soap was thickening so fast. I thought maybe it was my choice of fragrance oil, or it had something to do with what I was doing. And then I realized when I switched to pure olive oil, and I think I actually have a little container here. Yeah, this is one of my containers from Brambleberry. This is just pure, they call pure olive oil, fixed oil. And you can get this from Brambleberry. This is the 1 pound little container. I actually reuse these plastic containers to put the larger bottles of oil in, only because it's a lot easier to measure these, because you're pouring from a small bottle versus pouring from a giant container. And this actually, trace is slowed down, or is simplified by this. The Pomace olive oil, which is a lot thicker, I actually may have a container of that. Let me look here. A large container of olive oil, Pomace style fixed oil. You can see that it's darker in color than this oil. There's a difference in color there. And I don't know if that, I think it has more additives as far as like the olives go. From what I was able to read, when they press the olives and they extract the oil, The pumice oil has a lot of the stuff that settles to the bottom. So it's not that it has any kind of impurities or anything like that. It just has more things in it that apparently cause the soap to set up really fast. And occasionally when I'm making a piping, I will use the pumice oil because I want my piping to set up faster, because, you know, I have no patience, so I don't want to take too long to do any of this. So I use that. But if I want to do any sort of decorative swirls, or I want to take my time doing my soaps, then I would definitely suggest that you use the pure olive oil versus the pumice. Now you can use olive oil from like the grocery store or one of your discount clubs. The olive oil that I have now, I actually purchased at Sam's Club because I ran out and I couldn't wait for a shipment. And it soaps just fine. It's just the pure olive oil from Sam's. It kind of comes in this container. It's a 3-liter Members Mark 100% pure olive oil. It's not the virgin olive oil and it's not the extra virgin. It just says pure on it, and they sell it in the 3-liter containers, and it works just fine for soaping. So there's a little tip for you for those that may want to make their own, is if you want to have more time, or if you're a newbie and you don't have everything together, you don't know what you're doing yet or how to do designs, you may want trays to be as slow as possible, because if not, you're just going to kind of feel rushed and you're going to feel like that your soap is failing. Because mine, literally, this is one that I did in the beginning. This is my pink grapefruit soap. And I don't know if the camera can really show it, but there's little gaps where there were air pockets. It thickened really fast. Yeah, there's a nice little hole there where it thickened super fast, and I literally was pushing it into the mold with the spatula. And that was because I was using the other type of olive oil. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this soap. It's perfectly usable. I mean, it's a pretty color. It's a bright pink. I put the little piping, little decorative accents, and I actually used some of the little sprinkles on the top. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just it doesn't look as aesthetically pleasing or as pretty because it set up really fast and I had to just cram it in the mold. Now, sometimes you can have that happen with fragrance oils. Different factors can make soap set up super fast. So it's not always, the olive oil's fault or what type of oils you're using. But if you want more time to work with it, then I suggest you use pure olive oil. We're just going to give this some time to set up still. We're still at a, maybe not even a medium trace at this point. So I will come back when it is completely set up, and then we will start piping our donuts. Okay, just for a moment while we're waiting for our soap to set up, we are going to go ahead and take these little donuts out of the mold. As you can see, they look exactly like a chocolate donut, and they smell incredibly chocolatey. That is such a good fragrance. Oopsie, made a little boo-boo on that one. That's okay though, because it's going to be covered with piping, so no one will even know the difference. None will be the wiser. I love these silicone molds. Silicone is so easy to clean up. It's absolutely just the simplest thing in the entire world to clean up, because I did not realize how much dishwashing goes into soaping until I started doing this. And there is a great deal of dishwashing that goes into this. I probably spend more time washing by hand my soap dishes than I do my actual dishes. And I think that's just because I want to make sure that for safety's sake, I don't like to wash anything with any sort of raw soap on it, obviously in the same water where I would wash dishes or glasses or anything like that. So I try to do it all separately, and I always make sure to use like the hottest water that my gloves can withstand, and I make sure everything's cleaned and sanitized and dried properly, because it's about quality control in a way. You want your product to be the best that you can achieve with it, and to me it's to make sure everything is absolutely clean and there's no issues, there's no cross-contamination. At a job I used to have, we actually went through a course about contaminants and how to clean up after certain spills and messes, etc. So I already sort of have a crash course kind of in that. And I think that also applies to soap making, is you want everything to be just right. You don't want to harm yourself or others in the process. And as soon as we're ready to pipe, we have our donuts ready. Everything's ready to go. I already made up some more little salts. So we have a green, a yellow, we have a blue, and a purple. And for embeds, I have some little purple gummy bears, some little purple berries, some blueberries, a couple little roses. I don't know. I have some leftover melt and pour. Didn't want to waste it. Poured it into a mold. We'll see how that goes. And some blue gummy bears. Alright guys, we're going to give this a whirl here. Change my camera angle so you could get a better view. So right here we have our little donut holes. Well, there's a hole. It's a donut. You get what I'm saying. And over here we have our big tub of piping, or icing as we may want to call it. Now it's not totally to the point where I would like for it to be, but we're going to put it in a bag anyway because we need it to be a little thin going in, only because of how we're going into the donuts here. So I'm going to give a generous dollop inside my piping bag. Wow, I didn't spill any. I'm already impressed with myself. We're going to get that on down. I'm using a closed star tip on our little piping bag here. And I put down some freezer paper. Mainly for mess, but also because things don't stick to it. We're just going to take our first little donut here, and we're going to run some icing around the top of him, like so. Like I said, it's really kind of runny right now. It's not the greatest consistency for piping. I'm actually going to take a little pipette here. I'm gonna bring some of that icing around. Try to keep it within the donut itself, but I want the top to stick on there, so I don't want too much going there because I want everybody to stick together. Since I made the other part yesterday. There we go, just sit him on there like that. Got like a little donut sandwich thing going on. Then we're going to take our piping that is still a little runny, which is fine. We're going to give it a little bit of a doozy drizzle there, because I kind of want some of that to run down on the side. And that's going to firm up as it sits. Ha! Didn't spill any the second time either. And I'm just going to take my pipette and work my way around to give a little shape to the top of that. You know, how you might buy some sort of glazed confectionery donut thing at your local store. I'm going to let that just sit for a second. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, just to make sure this thing stick well to this, I'm going to give it a little spritz of rubbing alcohol. Then we're going to come over here and we're going to decide on a design for this particular one. Now for this one, I think I'm going to go with just the good old blue little berry embeds. So we're just going to put those around the top. like so. And this is not an exact science. This is about creativity and doing what you want to do. There is no right way and no wrong way to decorate. Now there is a right way and a wrong way to make soap, because you can definitely hurt yourself if you go, you know, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and you go a little weird with your recipes. But as far as designing and making, there's no steadfast thing that says you have to do anything a certain way. I mean, that would be absolutely ridiculous. And we're going to put some of the yellow sprinkles on this one. Once again, this is just the happy little bath salts. And like I said, not the zombie bath salts, the other bath salts, the kind like you would use in your shower. We're just going to sprinkle those around there like so. And that honestly looks like little bits of sugar. I mean, for me personally, I find soap making to be almost therapeutic. And I know that sounds weird to some people. People will look at you like you're absolutely crazy. But I have an anxiety disorder. I've had one probably my whole life, but I wasn't diagnosed until I was in my 40s. And so I know exactly what it's like to feel, you know, you don't fit in with everybody else because you're a little different. And when I just sprinkled on the ocean blue jojoba beads, give it a little dusting, they look a lot like sugar. So they are splendid for this particular thing. So our first little donut is done. And I'm going to zoom in on these in a little bit after we get some more under our belt here.